We're learning some more information about the contents of this deal. Here it is. That the ceasefire proposal includes 3 phases, each of them lasting 42 days, so about 6 weeks. The first phase of the deal includes providing passage for displaced Palestinians to return to their homes. The second phase of the deal includes the withdrawal of Israeli troops and cessation of military operations. In the third stage of the deal, there's also a provision on ending the blockade on the Gaza Strip, which has been in place for 17 years. Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara, joins us in the studio. Marwan, we're in the middle of something that we can't define yet, because we have one side to this agreement that has accepted it, the other side hasn't.
Well, I'll tell you something. Certainly, we've been here for the first time over the past 7 months. And clearly, Hamas's positive response to the mediator's proposal for a ceasefire has shocked and has took everyone by surprise, especially those in Israel, but perhaps also in the United States. And that's why they are clamoring now to understand what exactly is the response, how positive is it, and what does it really mean towards moving forward. Will there be then a pick-up negotiations, if you will, over the agreement of the agreement in Cairo, and then when you start the phases and so on and so forth. But clearly, it's a huge positive step in the right direction towards a ceasefire. That there is no doubt about. And I think, from my understanding, probably in paragraph 5, that's where you find the key to the change of heart or mind, right? I'm talking about technicality now. They talk about sustained quiet. It's a euphemism for a permanent ceasefire. So Israel does not want to hear the word ceasefire because clearly Netanyahu cannot sell it to his cabinet. Hamas, apparently, because of the various pressures and mediations, accepted finally to sustained quiet as the alternative to a permanent ceasefire.
I want your thoughts on this. I'm listening keenly. You say sustained quiet and the words that they're having to choose so that they might get agreement on both sides, 2 sides that don't really want the same thing, because one wants to end the war, the other one, as far as we can tell from their public pronouncements, wants to continue the war, and that's Israel. With these major diplomatic deals, often in my career reporting on deals like this one, they're all different, but that's kind of how you get to a deal, is you fudge the language a little bit. Not fudge it, but you have a gray area where both sides can kind of understand what they want. And then that's why so often implementing the deal becomes complicated, because they each have their own interpretation of it. You're
right 100% about that. But as in every negotiations, it's the mediator that steps in and presumably gives their understanding of what those phrases mean. And that's why what was a bit revealing is what you and I spoke about yesterday. If you remember yesterday, I said it's incredibly paradoxical. It's surprising, shocking almost. The fact that it's Hamas and the United States that want a ceasefire, and that it's the Netanyahu government that does not want a ceasefire. Well, the United States have provided all the guarantees it could provide, apparently. And that's why Director Burns, the director of the CIA, stayed overnight and then stayed again, extended his stay in Doha in order apparently to arrive at these understandings between the United States and the mediators, or Hamas, about the phrases, or the phraseology, if you will, about moving forward. Now, what's important in this is there a will on the part of the United States to make sure that the parties respect whatever they reach to, and that they arrive at the spirit and the letter of the agreement? I think that's what's important. Now, what happened over the past 2 weeks that you and I and others have spoken about? What happened over the past 2 weeks, it has become clear that the continuation of this war means the end of the Biden presidency. Stopping this war means the end of Netanyahu's premiership. That's where we're at. Biden has every incentive to reach a ceasefire because things are starting to boil up in his domestic scene in an election year. So now I'm going to go out on a limb and analytically, from a historical perspective, tell you that what happened at the universities in the United States was a major factor for why we are here now, in the sense of putting huge psychological pressure and some political pressure on the Biden administration to move more willfully, more determinedly on the question of trying to get both parties together. On the question of Hamas, there was
the election is in 6 months. I'm not interrupting, I'm just adding this. The election, the U.S. election, is in 6 months, almost to the day.
Absolutely. Now, there was also pressure on Hamas, and we have to be clear-headed about that. Yesterday, today I'm not sure, Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, was basically justifying Israel's horrific land invasion of Rafah if it takes place by saying Hamas left Israel no option but to invade Rafah. I don't want to say criminal. I don't want to use any vocabulary that's above and beyond. But that was definitely unconventional declaration from an American Secretary of Defense to basically justify an Israeli invasion that is to the disliking of the Biden administration itself.
They just said they can't support this.
Absolutely. So the fact that Lloyd Austin would say Hamas has given Israel no other option but to invade Rafah, that's a terrible. Anyway, but be that as it may, I think the pressure on Hamas has been huge over the past 72 hours. That Netanyahu made it clear that if nothing's going to happen soon on the captives, that he was going to invade. Gallant said today, nothing is happening on the captives, we are going in. Right? I'm trying to describe an atmosphere or a dynamic where why we're finding ourselves today, in the sense of the parties arriving at terminology that is perhaps acceptable to the United States and Hamas, and maybe tomorrow to Israel. Because Israel is going to find itself the odd man out if it does not agree to this. Because you're going to hear in the next several hours, take my word for it, European leaders, American leaders, Middle Eastern leaders, all of them coming out and say yes to this mediator's proposal for a ceasefire. And it's going to be Israel is going to be the odd man out, and we'll see what happens then.
Following your earlier train of thought on Gallant and Israeli officials saying, we're moving into Rafah. We have no choice but to do it because Hamas has left us no choice, right? This has been their messaging. And then this morning, the Israeli military ordered more than 100,000 Palestinians to leave parts of Rafah. I've been wondering, is that the ultimate bargaining tool for them to say, we're serious, look, we're moving in. We're starting with this little slice of Rafah, 100,000 people. There are 1.5 million people, 1.4 million to go if you don't stop us now.
I've been saying for the past 15 years on Al Jazeera, as we go from one diplomatic debacle to another over different fronts of whether it's Iran and Egypt, Syria, Turkey, and so on and so forth. In the end of the day, negotiations/diplomacy are a reflection of the balance of power or the imbalance. They are not the production. They are not the end product of some clever people trying to reach some clever terminology. That comes later. In the end of the day, there is a balance of power. Hamas has proven that it's unbeatable. You can destroy Gaza. Apparently, you can't destroy Hamas. 1. 2, Israel has proven that it can destroy Gaza and it can continue to destroy whatever it wants to destroy, and no one is going to stop it. The United States has proven that there is no third party capable, as the United States, to do something if it's actually willing to do something, whether towards war or towards peace in this part of the world. In the end of the day, it does have leverage with the troublemaker, and as far as I'm concerned, analytically speaking, which is Israel. The powerful country, which is Israel. So we have arrived after 7 months of destruction of Gaza, without being able to achieve the ultimate objectives of the Netanyahu government of October 8, October 9, right? And the United States in an election year having an administration in a bind, whereby you have President Biden, who basically is sitting on a successful economy, basically successful foreign policy, is down in the polls against a man who has about a zillion trials happening at the same time, right? For everything from, I don't know, whatever, I'm not going to go into the prostitution bits of it, whatever it is, right? So Biden understands that the war in Gaza has hurt him a lot. He thought he can somehow, what's the word in English? He can get, can escape the storm, right? He can wither the storm, right? But apparently not. Something happened in the psyche of the American public because of what happened on the campuses of several hundred American universities. The virus of revolt started spreading even to European universities. The young people, the Z generation, has revolted in a way that is so moral, so ethical, so clear about its call for justice, that I think Biden feels the need to push further towards a ceasefire. That's what changed over the past couple of weeks.
Marwan, we will be coming back to you very regularly throughout the course of the evening. Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political editor, thank you very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.